Well, good morning, Mr. William Winter. We're here once again, sunny day in Geelong, and I'm looking forward to today. It's good to have someone from the agricultural industry on the line.
Yeah, good morning, Mark. What a day, or should I say yesterday, what a day.
It was.
Because yesterday the Premier of Victoria resigned.
Yes, it was a bit of a surprise, or maybe not for some, but anyway.
Anyway, we have a mantra. We don't get involved
We
in
won't
politics.
get involved in that.
That's
no.
right.
And the other thing we did yesterday was finalise the judging with the business of the year, or the businesses of the year with the Chamber.
Yeah, with the Geelong Business Awards. And for, different to a couple of other years where I've been involved, there weren't any vicious arguments.
No, and what a great number of businesses that we've sort of seen and met, and I look forward to the final outcome of Business of the Year when that gets done. So, okay, so Bill, who's on the line?
Well, we've gone down to the other side of Colac today, and we're talking to Xavier Prime. I've had a couple of sessions with Xavier and looking at his business, and I'm really impressed with the fact that he has embraced a number of principles which are topical today, particularly in the egg market, and because the words free range are bandied around, and you see them on egg cartons, and some say that they can have 15,000 to the whatever, but I tell you what I saw down at Xavier's place, he really is into looking after his produce. He's producing great quality eggs. He's, he's also uses the expression pastured eggs, so we'll ask him about that. But the name of his eggs are Chooks on the Rooks, and we'll talk a little bit about how he manages all that with his movable sheds. So welcome, Xavier.
G'day, Bill. G'day, Mark. Thanks for having me.
That's great, Xavier. So, Xavier, where did life begin for you? This is the question we ask all our guests. Where did you go to primary school?
Went to primary school at St Brendan's Primary School in Carragulac. That's about 2 kilometres up the road from the family home that we grew up in.
Oh, right. So did you ride a horse to school, or did you ride your bike to school?
We got the bus to school. Pulled up out the front, jumped off not too long up the road.
And high school down that area as well?
Yep, I went to what was called Tech back in the day. It's called CFC now, and that was, Tech was probably for the kids that were a bit more hands-on type, woodwork, agriculture, that type of thing. So I went to Tech and loved it.
And so what led from Tech to farming? What's the link there?
Well, born on the farm, so born and raised on the farm, and it's just in your blood, isn't it? From day one, you get the bug, and it's what you grow up doing and what you grow up enjoying. And I think when you're choosing what path to go down in life, sometimes you just got to do the thing that you love doing, and that's what I've done. A couple of different things. Early days, I started off as an apprentice carpenter in town.
Yep. And
finished my apprenticeship, and that week took off overseas for a few years just to see what was out there.
Yep.
And done a loop and come back to farming in my 30s.
Oh, wow.
Xavier, you say you left and went away. What are some of the interesting jobs you did when you left Australia?
I did some bar work in England, saw a few things there. Ended up at one stage I was in Croatia, had a backpacking hostel, and started off as a cleaner there and enjoyed the party life quite a bit when I knocked off, and I ended up being a bit of a ringleader, I suppose, to take out all the guests to the nightclub show them the ropes. So I did that for a month or two. Probably needed to pull the pin there and dry out a bit for a month after that. But that was probably a couple of interesting things that I got up to. Got on the tools over there in Norway at one stage. We were just going everywhere, doing everything. Like we'd travel for a lot, and then after probably a month or two, you sort of looked at each other and went, "Struth, we need we probably need to go to work and
get a real life. Is that what it was?
yeah.
But no, that's a fantastic experience. And my lament about all of those experiences, and I had a similar thing many years ago, is that I can't see that the kids of today can have that hands-on experience, because look at the turmoil in countries now, European countries and things like that. It's just not safe anymore. That's one of the biggest issues.
Yeah, like it wasn't that long ago where you could head over to some of those Eastern European countries and you were pretty safe no matter where you went, was it? But now you've probably got to stick to the Englands and the France and Italy's and all that. You don't really, it's changed a lot.
And trying to get work overseas now, there a lot of imploding in saying, oh, we'll keep the jobs for our own people and we won't let people from overseas work. So you get into those sorts of debates too.
All right,
don't you?
so now you're back. I can't even pronounce where you are. All I know is it's just outside Colac.
Rooke is the name of our
Rooke.
Yes.
I remember the first time I went to visit you, I couldn't find the gate. I know that much. But anyway, you're now you've got two, I guess, ag businesses running, which is cattle and Chooks on the Rooke. And I know you want to expand, wherever you can. Now, I just want to clarify for those who are listening to us, because we've had this discussion. Mark and I have had it in a little group that we belong to, and we have breakfast once a month. To you, what should the definition of free range be when you're talking about eggs?
Well, this is a little bit of a can of worms, this step. what I think people picture free range as is chooks roaming green grass, and what that actually is pasture raised free range. And what free range really is now for 99% of the eggs is, I'm just going to be brutally honest here and just like...
That's why we're talking to you, by the way. I want to get this out.
You're the expert.
So if you see free range eggs on the shelf, particularly in the supermarket, that would come out of a shed that's probably 50 to 80 to maybe 100 metres long by 20 metres wide. It's a static shed. They're allowed to have 10,000 birds a hectare. The sheds obviously don't move around, so you could imagine how that 1 hectare of space looks like after all those thousands of chooks have tromped over it. You could imagine how it looks like when a bit of rain hits it in the winter. It's a big slop. And, as clever marketing by these big boys, you look at all those carton labels and you see green grass and red chooks and maybe even a Maremma or a farmer on the front, but really the reality is that free range is a bit of a rort now. But having said that, I am glad that the push to free range has happened, and that I would rather the birds in that environment than a caged environment. And sometimes when you look at the big picture, you just got to take incremental steps forward. And who knows, one day, maybe those free range big sheds, maybe it is not that far away, potentially, hopefully, that those sheds might have to be mobile. You never know. Like, it's not undoable, but that's a bit of the state of play as far as the standard goes.
Well, public pressure will bring that on, and I'll just give a snapshot of what I saw when I went to your place for the first time. So, Mark, you drive in and you drive along this long dirt driveway and you see cattle roaming everywhere, and you go over that right-hand turn up the top of the hill there, Xavier, and suddenly you see these huge sheds, based around the property. But when you get up and you see chooks running everywhere, but not only chooks, I think I nearly ran over 3 dogs, right? And we'll talk about your dogs in a minute.
And they'd be Maremmas, I take it, are they, Xavier?
Maremmas, and there's some Kelpies running around as well.
Okay, yeah, the old traditional sheepdog
right.
that looks after. It's
but
good.
the point about your sheds is that they are big, and the chooks roam around them in a particular area, and then I guess they go back into the sheds, out of the weather and sleep or whatever they do and lay their eggs, but they're mobile. So what you do is you pull the sheds across when the surrounding area is actually being eaten down, and then you move the sheds on and they create another area, but the area that's left is full of chook shit, as we'll call it, and then that gives you a much better feed, and then you put your cattle on it. Now, is that a summary of what I saw?
That is spot on. It is. It's, chook shit is the best fertilizer in the world, and that is the best. That is how we fertilize our soils and the lands that we roam on out at Rooke. So, it's nature. We're mimicking nature in a way. When I'm not the first to describe this, but Joel Salatin is probably the first man to really come at this. And it's like the African savannah where you see the wildebeest roaming the longer grass, and then following those wildebeest would be wild birds who are following those the wildebeest and the manure they leave behind, and they're spreading it and fertilizing nature naturally.
Yeah. And this is isn't this part of what regenerative farming's all about?
That's what it's all about. Yeah, it's all about mobile sheds, keeping cattle cell grazed and resting the land for a good spell, let it recuperate and go again.
So how big's your farm, Xavier?
We're on 160 acres.
Ooh, good size. So do you have areas that I'm going to use the word you resting or put them at fallow or whatever, so you rotate around? Is that how you do it?
Yeah, that's how we do it. And it's always, it's not always perfect either, like depending on the season and how many cattle you got on at the time and things like that. But generally, the cattle are grazing the longer bits of grass, and those mobile sheds are following them around as best we can, and it works pretty well.
Yep.
Rooke, I've got to say, is highly, highly fertile. It's part of the Victorian volcanic plains. We're just up the road from an extinct volcano. So the results we see where the birds have been are great, but you see other farmers probably get better results on more marginal land that's not as fertile.
Yeah, okay. And how many head of cattle?
A bit too many at the moment, but we're running 50 cows and calves.
Yep.
And the season's sitting on a bit of a knife's edge at the moment. We're sort of holding on to some younger cattle that would have usually gone by now. So we're watching carefully the cattle market and the skies. And
is that prices coming down, Xavier? Is that what's...
Oh, they've crashed and burned, haven't they? Yeah, the price is just, it's obviously really dry up north. It's dry enough down here too. And, depending on whether we get a bit of rain soon, it might be a really short spring. So, a lot of farmers everywhere, I suppose, coming up with plans and ideas of how they're going to tackle the next 6 months plus. Yep. We're really lucky. The cattle job's been so good the last few years that we've been lucky to get really good prices. But to have the chooks run as another enterprise on the property is just so valuable this time around, to be versatile and to have another stream of income coming in.
That's very. And so how many chooks have you got running around?
Do
you know?
Around about, give or take a few. There's about 6,000 or 7,000 at the moment.
Wow. And the security around foxes and all that sort of stuff's the dogs?
Yes. We're always playing cat and mouse with Mr. Fox out at Rooke, and we've got a lot of Maramas. I think we've got 10 or something. There's a couple of retired, a couple of non-working ones, some kelpies. So they keep foxes at bay. Pretty good. We also run. We never used to do this, but we have. We run an electric net that's mobile and temporary that goes around with the sheds as well. So when Mr. Fox gets a spark off his beak, that usually keeps him away for a little bit.
Now, so Xavier, I just want to go back to the running of the business now. And we know that everything related to ag, costs have gone up. How's this affected you? Because I don't know what you import as far as any feed or supplements or whatever it is, and fertiliser. How's that affected you?
well, when we started 7 years ago, the price of grain was $350 a tonne, and we used to get $5 a dozen. Now we get $6 and a bit, and the price of grain's about $700 a tonne. So that margin has come in a long, long way. But I wish egg prices would flow in correlation with the grain price. But that's just not the world we live in. If we asked for $10 a dozen for eggs, we wouldn't go real far. So, yeah, I mean, it's affected anyone who relies on grain to feed animals in the last 5 to 7 years. And I suppose part of the way of getting through it is to grow and produce more and get sort of stuck into the volume side of it. I suppose the only silver lining to it all is that grain prices are historically really, really high. And, if you can survive and get through this period, then when things do ease, hopefully, that's when we might be able to cash in a bit more.
Yeah, but David, everyone's in the same boat, of course, and you know that I'm involved with another poultry industry, which is not chickens, and the cost of grain or feed, I agree with you, is very similar to what you were talking about. It's just gone through the roof, and you can't even budget for it correctly. That's the problem.
And what's caused so just for an ignorant person like me, Xavier, what's caused the price of grain to go through the roof? I mean, into my head pop Ukraine and they'd be an exporter of grain, but did they export to Australia? Is that?
Well, yeah, there's a lot of things at play, but you're right. It's you hear from the grain suppliers that it's all world market driven, and Ukraine is one of the biggest producers in the world of wheat and barley, and ports closed and things like that. So you put that in with a drought here and there around the world, and prices gone up, and they just keep going up.
Yeah, because
Bill, what do you? Yeah,
I suppose if you're making growing grain, the world's your oyster. You can sell it at whatever price you want because there's a huge demand for it. I suppose it's the old supply and demand, isn't it?
Very similar, Mark. We've got mates in the building industry, and I'm involved with a steel company at the moment, and the price of steel just went through the roof, and the cost of all building materials went through the roof. They're coming back now, but that was just a case of there was so much coming out of China, and not only couldn't you get it out of China, but the cost of a shipping container went. I had a client who went from $3,500 to $16,000 a container.
Okay, a lot of money.
Yeah, so all of that. Now, I just want, Xavier, I want to go back and talk about the word organic. Because when I looked at, and you and I have both read an article recently where the cost of producing something and putting an organic label on it, it doesn't relate, because if you want to recover your costs and you want to be a strict organic farmer, you can't get your return, can you?
Not unless you're asking for and getting, sort of, by the sounds of it, you need 12, 13, 14 bucks a dozen. I think the price of grain for those guys is nearly 3 times or at least double what we pay. And then you've got to drag it down from Queensland often. So, organic is a tough business. And you're finding with the meat chicken guys in the organic space that they're having a lot of trouble treating birds, and that's starting to really, their mortality rates through the roof, and that they're really struggling on that front. So, organic's something that, it's to get into that, you want to be.
We hear a lot of press about things being organic and all this stuff, but I just know from bitter experience and from dealing with people in agribusiness that it's just the cost is it's just not worth doing it. And if you're going to call yourself 100% organic, you're not going to be a big operator.
You're probably a niche business at the end.
You are. Now, the other issue that I've always concerned for agribusiness in Australia is biosecurity. And we've heard about bird flu. How do you handle biosecurity with your product?
It's because of our location, it's something we're starting to ramp up a lot more professionally now with the farm itself and our birds. But up till this stage, with our location at Rooke, we really are in a bit of a bubble. I'm not saying we can't get affected by it whatsoever, but being like in the foothills of the Otways with no real major poultry producers too far from us, with our biosecurity probably doesn't need to be as strict as someone who might come from like the Golden Plains, where avian influenza and that seems to be a yearly occurrence. So, look, we've got things in place that protect us, but we could always do more, and we are doing more.
Yeah, and the other problem, because once again, I'll repeat, I'm involved in the poultry industry, is the public don't understand that the effect of biosecurity, and you just can't go out there roaming around paddocks and having anyone come through your property and all the rest of it. And in the business that I'm involved with or working for, we've got some of our farms shower in, shower out. You can't get in there unless you change clothes and have a shower, and you can't get out unless you do that. And that's related to bird flu. But so it's just an awareness that Australians have, like city folk in particular, have got to realise that, to grow safe and food that's good for you, there are certain security issues that must go around it.
Yep. What's your thoughts on that, Xavier?
Yeah, 100%. And I think sometimes just because you can't see a disease,
that's true.
It's like it's not a visual thing that people can see, and traipsing onto a farm or something like that, you might just think that you're walking over a bit of dirt or something or whatever they're doing, but they're potentially, they're putting at risk the whole farm and the other farms around it if they were to drag something on. So I just think there's a lot of signs up.
Yeah, we need to keep the awareness up front. Now, I just want to change tack because you've started your succession planning, haven't you? Tell our listeners about your family, and you've built yourself a great little house. I think you just built it on your own, from memory. And you've got a new addition to the family in recent times.
We have, yes. So Kimberly, my partner, and I welcomed Max into the world almost 2 years ago. Right. And I suppose life has changed a lot. It's just the best, obviously, and it is so nice to have little Max around me and around us on the farm. He absolutely loves it to bits. He's a little farm boy through and through already. And with our succession planning, as far as that goes, I moved to Darwin and spent a few years on a gas plant there to put some pennies away when I got home from overseas, and that got it. I saved up enough to buy half the family farm off my parents, and still saving for the other half at the moment. And with the price of land, it kind of keeps creeping away from me, unfortunately. I need to keep saving a bit faster. But
have you got brothers and sisters, Xavier?
Yeah, so I've got 3 younger sisters.
They're not interested in the farm?
I wouldn't say so, no. Yeah. But also, mum and dad are very, so they should be. It's a very fair family. There's been discussions had there about how that would look and how it would be divided equally and whatnot. So it's something that's in front of us for the future. But for now, if I can't save up enough pennies, someone else might swoop in and get that 80 acres.
Well, the best thing there, Xavier, is that at least the conversations are being held. And Mark and I talk to family businesses, and we work with family businesses. And where these sorts of conversations haven't been held is where it all turns to mud in the end, unfortunately. But at least you've made a start. You've got your little patch of land, and you've got, as I said, repeat what I said before, you've got those fantastic sheds moving, and you've even got, what's that new one you bought? Where is that an incubator? It's not an incubator, is it? Where you raise the chicks? What's that called?
Yeah, so I'm so proud of these sheds. They're 3 mobile sheds. They came over from France in a container as a flat pack.
Wow.
And we assembled them here. And what they are is the Europeans do this very, very well. They're so far in front of us with pastured farming and mobile sheds. So what these are like a brooder on skids. And what would normally happen when you raise a meat chicken is that they would spend day 1 to week 4 or so in a big brooder, a big heater, and then when they've got enough feathers, then they might venture outside. But what I'm proud about these sheds is the fact that the birds can have access to green grass from day 1. So they live such a short life, especially a broiler chicken, might be between 6 and 8 weeks at processing.
Yep.
You think about that gap that most chickens would have between coming out of the brooder and free range, whereas that's why we went for these sheds. If they're going to live a shortish life, in our opinion, then we want them to have as much access to grass as possible. So that's the new sheds that we've got built at home.
So what's the future, Xavier? Where do you see the industry innovating and changing? You're obviously keeping abreast of things that are happening. What would you like to see introduced, or what's your next step on your farm, do you think?
We've got one thing in the pipeline. Sometimes you come up with an idea and it's that good you don't want to share it.
Yeah, no, well, don't share it.
So I'll give you a bit of an idea though. We're testing a couple of markets here and there, but there's one in particular that's got to do with like a fancy heritage breed that lays nice coloured eggs, and I think that is our next venture. I mean, we're trying to grow the eggs and the cattle and doing what we already do and grow that. But I don't know what it is, but, sometimes you just go for the thing that's a little bit harder, or that's not being done, or it's not being done well. And it's just like a little shiny thing that you chase.
But that's good. You're thinking. I love the idea that you're thinking of change and innovation. That's fantastic.
Well, that's right. So you operate in theory, Xavier. Anyone can go out and start an egg farm or so, free range, whatever. But it's what do you do that's different? And Mark and I ran a workshop recently for 30 business owners here in Geelong, and we have this expression: differentiate or die. Because if you're in a market that everybody else can get into, and you don't want to be caught in pricing. But anyway, look, we've reached a stage where we're going to close up, and we'll probably interview you again in a year's time and see how you've progressed. But if people want to get in touch with you, you've got a website, you've got a Facebook site. So what's your website?
Yep, it is chooks@rooke.com, and it's a bit of a, thinking about changing the name of that business. But
thank you, Xavier. That's been really, really interesting. And just to clarify, to get a hold of Xavier and to find where you can buy his eggs, his free-range eggs, go to chooks@therooke.com. So that's chooks@therooke.com, and you'll see where all the stockists are. So thanks very much, Xavier. Bye.